Have you ever wondered why some people walk into a room and instantly draw attention without even saying a word? And then when they speak, silence, all eyes, all ears focused on them. What makes their words different from yours or mine? Why do their voices echo in people's minds while others are forgotten the moment they stop talking? The answer lies in a truth most people never learn. Words are not just for talking. Words are for leading. From the moment you open your mouth, people begin to judge you, your strength, your confidence, your worth. They don't wait for a full sentence. They judge by tone, pace, energy, and by the unspoken belief behind your words. That's not fair, but it is reality. And if you want to succeed in life, in business, in relationships, you need to learn how powerful people talk. And here's the reward. If you watch till the end of this video, you'll understand how the greatest leaders in history, like Napoleon, used words to bend reality. And you'll know how to do the same. Because leadership isn't about titles. It's not about money. It's about influence. And influence starts with the tongue. Let's go deeper. Human psychology is wired to respond to certain voices. Not the loudest, not the smartest, but the most certain. Certainty is magnetic. When someone speaks with certainty, even if they say very little, people stop scrolling, stop thinking, and start listening. Because in an uncertain world, the mind craves confidence. It's drawn to whoever seems to know the way. This is why a leader's first job is to speak like one. But here's where most people get it wrong. They think it's about saying big words or sounding clever. That's a trap. Real leaders speak simply, because simple is strong. They don't use fancy words. They use words that punch like thunder. Words that go straight to the gut. Words you feel, not just hear. Now think about your own life. How many opportunities have passed you by, not because you lacked skill, but because you didn't speak up the right way? You had the idea. You had the potential, but your voice didn't carry it. This is what separates those who rise from those who stay behind. Not just what they think, but how they express it. And expression is power. It begins with this: you must believe your words matter, because if you don't, no one else will. When you speak with doubt, the mind of your listener closes. When you speak with belief, their mind opens. Every time you talk, you are training the world how to treat you. If you speak like a follower, people will lead you. If you speak like a leader, people will follow you. Napoleon understood this. Long before he ruled Europe, he ruled attention. His soldiers would stand in line not just for his orders, but for his words, because his voice made them feel powerful. It made them believe they could conquer anything. He didn't just tell men what to do, he told them who they were, and that changed everything. So ask yourself right now, what do your words say about you? Do they inspire respect or invite doubt? Do they lift others or drain energy? Do they carry conviction or sound like you're second-guessing yourself? This is not about being perfect. It's not about sounding like someone else. It's about tapping into the leader already inside you and letting that leader speak. Here's a truth based on human psychology. People follow those who sound like they know where they're going, even if they're still figuring it out. So speak with direction. Speak with energy. Speak with intention. Because when you speak like a leader, everything starts to change. People listen. Opportunities find you. Confidence builds from within. And most of all, you begin to believe in yourself. This is not just motivation, it's transformation. And in the sections ahead, you'll discover the actual techniques that legendary leaders use to communicate powerfully. Not tricks, not gimmicks, but deep psychological truths that you can use starting today to speak like someone the world cannot ignore. So stay with me. By the end, your voice won't just be louder, it will be unstoppable. Napoleon didn't lead because he was the tallest. He wasn't. He didn't lead because he had the most resources. He often didn't. He led because he understood one simple truth: your words can create worlds. Long before he ever stepped onto a battlefield, he mastered the battlefield of minds. He knew how to speak directly to the human soul. His speeches weren't long, they weren't poetic, but they were unforgettable because he said exactly what his men needed to hear with absolute belief. He didn't just give commands, he gave purpose. He didn't just move armies, he moved emotions. That's the secret most people miss. If you want people to follow you at work, in life, even in your own family, you don't need to raise your voice. You need to raise their belief. And that only happens when your words carry intention. Napoleon had a way of making every soldier feel like history was watching them, that their actions mattered, that greatness was within reach. And when people believe that, they stop hesitating. They start acting. Today, you have the same power. Whether you're talking to a team or talking to yourself in the mirror, what you say and how you say it can either ignite fire or kill momentum. Psychologists know this well. People don't respond to facts as much as they respond to feeling, and feeling is created by tone, not just words. Napoleon mastered tone, calm, commanding, certain. He never begged, he never pleaded, he inspired. That's why his name still echoes through time, not just for what he did, but for what he said to make it happen. And the moment you learn to use your voice like that, with vision, clarity, and conviction, people around you will begin to move. Not because they have to, but because they want to. Words can build or break. They can free a nation or start a war. Yet most people throw words around carelessly, never realizing they're handling power. Real leaders don't speak to fill silence. They speak to shape reality. Every powerful person, whether they lead countries or companies, understands this. Words are not decorations. They are tools. And tools must be used with precision. When your words are weak, people sense weakness. When your words are sharp, clear, and intentional, people sense strength. And the truth is, strength is attractive. It pulls people in. It makes them trust. It makes them move. But here's what most forget. You don't need a loud voice to have a strong one. Power doesn't come from volume. It comes from alignment. When your words match your inner certainty. The mind is always searching for cues. Is this person sure? Do they believe what they're saying? And when your words are uncertain, the mind of your listener closes like a locked door. But when you speak with purpose, people lean in. Because deep inside, we all want someone to follow, someone who knows where they're going. Think about it when you say, I think, instead of I believe. When you say, I might, instead of I will, you water down your presence. You give away power without knowing it. So, how do you speak with strength? Use words that lift. Use words that build. Use words that move people toward a higher vision, including yourself. Say things that light a fire, not things that dim the light. Replace self-doubt with certainty. Replace filler with purpose. Because your voice was never meant to be silent. It was meant to shape the world around you. Once you start using your words like tools, not toys, you'll notice the shift in how people treat you, in how you treat yourself, and that shift becomes unstoppable. Before people follow your words, they feel your energy, and the first energy they search for is confidence. Not arrogance, not noise, confidence. Quiet, steady, unshakable. Real confidence isn't loud. It doesn't have to prove itself. It speaks less, but every word carries weight. It doesn't try to impress. It expresses truth with clarity and calm. Psychology shows that when someone speaks with certainty, the human brain naturally assumes they have authority. Why? Because we are wired to seek security, and confidence feels safe. It feels like someone knows the way. This is why in every conversation, people are not just listening to your words. They are scanning you for belief. Do you believe in what you're saying? Do you carry conviction in your tone? Is your voice steady or uncertain? Confidence starts from the inside. If you doubt yourself in your mind, it will echo in your voice. And no matter how good your words are, people won't trust them unless you do. Think about how Napoleon spoke. He didn't ask for permission. He didn't explain why he deserved to lead. He spoke as if the future already belonged to him. That kind of certainty made others believe it too. So how do you build that kind of presence? You begin by keeping your promises to yourself. When you say you'll do something, do it. When you speak, make sure your mind and your heart are aligned. Don't rush your words. Don't shrink your voice. Speak from your chest, not your fear. Take your time. Breathe. Own the silence before the sentence. Because a confident voice doesn't need to fight for attention, it commands it. The moment you stop needing approval, your voice changes. It becomes calm, controlled, centered. And that's when the world starts to lean in. Confidence is the first sound of leadership. And when it speaks, everything else follows. Leadership is not about sounding smart. It's about being understood. And people don't follow what they don't understand. The greatest communicators in history, from generals to presidents, all had one trait in common. They spoke clearly, not with big words, not with clever phrases, but with simple, direct language that hits straight to the heart. Psychology reveals something powerful. When people hear complex language, they feel distance. But when the message is clear, they feel connection. And connection builds trust. Most people speak to impress, but leaders speak to impact. If your words confuse, your message is lost. If your words are clear, your message becomes a mirror. People see themselves in it. They feel it. They carry it with them. Napoleon knew this. He didn't bury his men in long speeches or complicated strategies. He told them what mattered, why it mattered. And he said it in a way that made them believe they were chosen for greatness. Because that's what clear words do. They wake people up. You don't need to use 5 words when one will do. You don't need to sound academic to sound powerful. In fact, the fewer words you use, the more people remember them. Say it clean. Say it true. Say it with fire. Because when your words are easy to grasp, they're hard to forget. And in a world flooded with noise, clarity is rare, which makes it powerful. So strip away the fluff, or drop the filler. Don't just say what you know. Say what they need to feel. And do it in a way even a child could understand. Because that's when you know your voice has matured. When it can cut through confusion and leave only conviction. Words lose power when they're overused. The more you talk, the less people hear. Leaders understand this truth deeply. Every word should work. Every sentence should strike. When you speak too much, you weaken your presence. People stop listening, not because what you say isn't valuable, but because it's buried under noise. Psychology teaches us something called cognitive overload. When the brain receives too much information, it shuts down. Not out of disrespect, but out of defense. It protects itself from confusion. This is why great communicators say more by saying less. Each word is chosen. Each pause is placed. Each sentence carries a message, not just sound. Think of the most powerful speeches in history. They weren't essays, they were declarations. Simple, bold, unforgettable. Victory belongs to the most persevering. Napoleon said that, just 5 words, and the world still remembers. Because truth doesn't need decoration, it just needs direction. When you speak, ask yourself, is this needed? Is this helping? Does this move people or just fill silence? Cut the fluff, remove the noise, let your voice breathe. Let your silence speak when words aren't required. In fact, sometimes what you don't say carries more power than what you do. When you speak less, people pay more attention. They lean in. They wonder what's coming next. And when you finally speak, every word lands like thunder. So discipline your speech. Make every phrase carry weight. Because a short sentence filled with truth can move mountains. In a world full of overtalkers, be the voice of clarity. Be the one who doesn't waste words. Be the one who speaks with impact, not just volume. Because when you speak less, you leave space for your words to echo. A leader's voice is not just heard, it's felt. And what people feel the most is your emotion. But here's the key, it must be controlled. Emotion is powerful, but uncontrolled emotion is dangerous. When your voice is full of anger, fear, or desperation, people stop trusting it. They hear your chaos, not your message. And when people sense instability, they step back. True influence begins when you master your emotions, not silence them, but direct them. Great leaders don't fake calm, they build it. They understand that their tone sets the temperature of the room. If their voice shakes, the crowd loses faith. If their voice stays steady, even in crisis, the crowd finds hope. Psychologically, people mirror the emotions they hear. If you speak with panic, they absorb panic. If you speak with grounded strength, they absorb courage. This is why control is not weakness, it's power. Napoleon never let his feelings leak into his orders. He might have felt doubt, fear, or frustration, but his voice never betrayed him. Because he knew the moment his voice lost control, his army would too. Your emotions are energy, but that energy must be channeled like water through a dam, with pressure but with direction. Feel the fire, but don't let it burn the message. Speak with passion, but never with panic. Let your emotion rise, then wrap it in purpose. Take a breath before speaking. Pause when anger tries to lead. Choose tone over tension. Choose power over reaction. Because the one who controls their voice controls the room. People don't follow the loudest. They follow the most centered. And your voice, when emotionally balanced, becomes the anchor in every storm. That's how leadership speaks, not just from the mouth, but from a mind and heart under control. Most people fear silence. They rush to fill every second with sound, thinking silence is weakness. But the truth is, silence is one of the most powerful tools in communication. When used with purpose, it creates space, not emptiness, but impact. Silence lets your words breathe. It gives people time to feel, not just hear. Because motivation isn't about volume, it's about resonance. Psychologists call this processing pause. The brain needs a moment to absorb, to attach meaning, to decide. When you speak nonstop, you overload the listener. But when you pause just for a second, everything changes. Suddenly your words feel heavier. Your message becomes magnetic. And people lean in because silence makes them listen deeper. Think of the greatest speeches in history. There were always pauses, not because the speaker forgot, but because the moment needed weight. Napoleon knew this. He wasn't afraid of silence. He used it. Before delivering a decisive order, he paused. Before declaring victory, he let the moment stretch. And in that stretch, people felt history being made. You can do the same. When you finish a powerful sentence, don't rush the next one. Let it land. Let it echo. When you want people to remember a point, stop talking right after and give them time to hold it. In a world addicted to noise, silence grabs attention like nothing else. It says, I'm not rushing. What I just said matters, and what comes next is worth waiting for. This is leadership. This is mastery, not in how much you say, but in how you let your words carry power between the lines. So speak, then pause, let the silence work for you. Because the space between your words is where true impact lives. Ordinary people speak about what is, leaders speak about what can be. If you only talk about the present, the struggles, the problems, the noise, you'll never lift anyone. But when your words paint a picture of a better future, people listen differently. They don't just hear your voice, they start to see through your eyes. Human psychology is deeply wired for story and meaning. We're driven not just by survival, but by a sense of purpose. And purpose comes from vision. Napoleon didn't gather armies by discussing the mud beneath their feet. He spoke of empires. He spoke of glory. He gave them a reason to believe that they were part of something far bigger than themselves. That's what inspired men to follow him into impossible battles. Not fear, not orders, but vision. When you speak, don't stay trapped in the now. Talk to people's future. Talk to their potential. Help them see who they can become, not just who they are. That's what moves the soul. That's what awakens the fighter inside every person. Say things like, you're not stuck. You're being shaped. This pain isn't punishment. It's preparation. The struggle you feel right now is building the strength you'll need later. Words like these break chains not outside, but inside. They open minds, they lift heads, and they build belief. Because once a person can picture a better life, they'll start moving toward it, no matter how far it seems. So don't just speak to comfort. Speak to call out the future. Let your voice be the spark that ignites a new vision inside someone else. Because when you help someone see what they can become, they'll never go back to what they were. And that is the real power of your voice. What you repeat, you begin to believe. And what you believe, you start to become. The human brain doesn't just learn through information, it learns through repetition. Repetition is the rhythm of belief. The more often you hear something, the more familiar it feels, and the more true it becomes. This is why leaders don't say something once and move on. They repeat the message. Not because people didn't hear it, but because they haven't felt it deeply enough yet. Napoleon understood this principle. He told his soldiers again and again, "You are the pride of the nation. You are history in motion. You are fighting for something greater than yourselves." He repeated the truth until it sank into their bones. Because that's how belief works. It starts at the surface, but repetition takes it deeper. You have to do the same for others and for yourself. Speak the same empowering message until it becomes the background music of the mind. Say it until it no longer sounds like motivation. It sounds like identity. Tell your team, "We are built for this." Tell yourself, "I was made for more." And say it daily, not occasionally. Psychologists call this neuroplasticity. The brain rewires itself based on repeated thought. Say something once, it passes by. Say it every day. It becomes a pathway. This is why self-talk matters. This is why the words you choose over and over shape how you see the world and how the world sees you. So don't fear repetition. Use it. Make your message stick by saying it until it becomes part of who you are. Because when you repeat truth with power, belief grows. And where belief grows, action follows. That's how leaders shape minds, not with one great speech, but with a steady voice that never stops speaking greatness into others. Emotion is powerful, but power without direction becomes destruction. Real leaders don't just speak from the heart. They speak with responsibility, because every word you speak plants something in the mind of another person. It can grow into courage or confusion, hope or doubt, strength or fear. When you speak with raw emotion and no awareness of impact, you risk doing damage. But when you speak with purpose, when your emotion is guided by clarity, your words begin to heal, to drive, to lead. The psychology of influence is rooted in trust. People follow voices they trust, not just because of what's said, but because of how it's said. When your voice is reckless, trust breaks. When your voice is stable, grounded, and intentional, trust grows. You don't need to suppress your feelings, but you do need to take full ownership of the effect your words have. Ask yourself, is what I'm saying helping someone rise? Is my message building or breaking? Am I leading them forward or just reacting to my own frustration? Napoleon never let emotion control his orders. He felt deeply, but he knew that his voice held the fate of thousands. So he spoke from wisdom, not impulse. And that's what separates true leaders. Not just powerful words, but disciplined delivery. When you speak, you're not just sharing ideas. You're giving people a lens to see themselves and the world. Make sure it's a clear one, because words spoken in frustration can leave scars. But words spoken in responsibility, they leave strength. Let your voice be a tool of direction. Let your emotions serve the mission, not interrupt it. And always remember, a leader's job is not to vent. A leader's job is to lift. Speak with fire, yes, but make sure it's fire that warms, not burns. People don't just remember what you say, they become what you repeat. Your voice, whether you realize it or not, is shaping identity. Every time you speak to someone, you're either confirming their worth or questioning it. That's the weight your words carry. They don't just pass through ears, they sink into the soul. Psychologists call this identity reinforcement. When someone hears a message enough times, their brain starts to build a belief system around it. And that belief system becomes who they are. So when you say to someone, "You are capable, you are built for more, you have something powerful inside you," you're not just encouraging, you're reprogramming. And when you say it with conviction, when your tone matches the truth, it doesn't just sound good. It feels real. Napoleon spoke to the warrior inside his men, not the fear. He didn't describe their current state. He described the greatness they hadn't yet reached. That's the secret. Leaders don't speak to who people are. They speak to who people are becoming. Use your voice like a mirror that reflects potential. Say things like, "I know you don't feel strong right now, but look at how far you've come. You've overcome too much to stop here. This version of you is just the beginning." Because identity isn't fixed, it's shaped. And your words are the tools that shape it. Speak with intention. Speak with vision. Speak with belief that's louder than doubt. Because when your voice tells someone who they truly are, something inside them shifts. They walk taller. They fight harder. They rise. So never forget this. Every word you speak is either building an identity or breaking one. Choose to build. It's not just what you say, it's how you say it. Your tone is the emotional truth behind the words, and the human brain is wired to detect that truth instantly. Before someone processes your message, they feel your energy. That's why two people can say the exact same sentence, and one inspires while the other offends. The difference? Tone. Psychologists call it paralanguage, the pitch, pace, and pressure in your voice. It tells people what you really mean even when your words don't. You can say, "I believe in you," but if your tone is flat, cold, distracted, no one believes it. Say it with fire, say it with heart, and suddenly it becomes real. This is why great leaders don't just speak to inform, they speak to ignite. Napoleon didn't move armies by listing strategies. He moved them by speaking with tone that made them feel invincible. He didn't just share ideas, he transferred belief. Your tone does the same. It tells people if they matter. It tells them if you care. It tells them if you're confident or if you're just trying to sound that way. Want people to trust you? Let them feel certainty in your voice.